This week,
Jimmy Carter was that all too rare example of a gifted man who also walks with humility, modesty, and grace.
the nation says goodbye to the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter.
They just have to hang on to each other.
President Biden meets with the families of victims in the deadly New Year's terrorist attack in New Orleans.
The hard sell that you saw last session has gotten even harder.
Opposition grows by educators and parents for Governor Lee's latest school voucher plan. More in our This Week cover story.
Well, there's nothing off the table. One thing we do know is that there are a couple of issues that are really important with respect to when they're addressed. They need to be addressed soon.
The governor is leaning toward a special legislative session combining school vouchers with hurricane relief funds for Tennesseans, something Democrats call inappropriate and highly offensive. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of This Week. The nation lays to rest former President Jimmy Carter. Opponents speak out against Governor Bill Lee's latest school voucher plan, which may be paired with hurricane relief money for Tennesseans in a special legislative session. President Biden mourns with survivors of the New Orleans terror attack, but we begin with a peaceful transfer of power, unlike what happened 4 years ago on January the 6th.
The outcome of the 2024 presidential election now official. Donald Trump declared the winner today. The votes counted, the results certified before a joint session of Congress.
Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
Trump's opponent in the race, Vice President Kamala Harris, presiding over the constitutional formality.
Today, I did what I've done my entire career, performing my constitutional duties to ensure that the people of America, the voters of America, will have their votes counted.
The results certified in the same building attacked by Trump supporters 4 years ago. On January 6, 2021, Trump urged his supporters to march to the Capitol, telling his then Vice President Mike Pence to reject the results of the 2020 election that President Biden had won. Republican lawmakers today with no plans to mark the anniversary.
This is a great day for the country. We're going to certify the election of Donald J. Trump as the 47th president. That's our focus today.
The Department of Justice says more than 1,200 people have either pleaded guilty or were found guilty at trial for charges tied to the attack. Trump has promised to pardon some, calling them political prisoners. Today, Enrique Tarrio, the former leader of the Proud Boys, is asking Trump for a full pardon. He was sentenced to 22 years in prison for his role in the attack.
Pardoning the criminals who assaulted police officers and tried to halt the democratic process would be a dangerous endorsement of political violence.
In a letter to Trump, Tarrio's lawyer says his client is nothing more than a proud American who believes in true conservative values. Prosecutors say he helped rally his members ahead of January 6th to stop the transfer of power. Perry Russum, ABC News, Washington.
President Joe Biden met personally with the families of victims in the deadly New Year's terrorist attack in New Orleans. Washington correspondent Jesse Tenor has more on the visit.
They just have to hang on to each other.
President Joe Biden has become known as the consoler-in-chief, and Monday may mark his last chance to act on that while in office.
I've been there. There's nothing you can really say to somebody who has had such a tragic loss.
But the president will try. He's attending a prayer service in New Orleans and meeting with the families of victims from the deadly New Year's terrorist attack. The FBI says a U.S. citizen and Army veteran, inspired by ISIS, drove into a crowd on Bourbon Street, killing 14 people and injuring dozens more.
In New Orleans, it was an act of a single man.
President Biden pledged to help the victims' families and state and local officials with whatever they need. And the Louisiana congressional delegation is holding him to that.
What happened in New Orleans could have happened anywhere.
Democratic Congressman Troy Carter joined his Republican colleagues in urging President Biden to expedite their state's emergency declaration request. It will surge resources to the emergency services, infrastructure, and local businesses impacted by the attack.
We must stand together, push back against terrorism.
Carter says he will also use his position on the Homeland Security Committee to work to stop threats, including from inside the U.S. military.
My fear is that we will continue to see more of these lone actors who are out there being radicalized and hoodwinked by the enemy.
Other lawmakers have called for congressional hearings into the federal government's investigation. In Washington, I'm Jesse Tenor.
President-elect Trump is expected to accelerate NASA's timeline for human missions, including putting people on Mars. Recent reports suggest a major overhaul of the space organization. News Nation's Xavier Walton explains.
When it comes to space, you gotta reach for the stars, and that's apparently what the Trump administration incoming is doing, at least with these goals, these suggestions, if you will. Let's talk about them really quick. Specifically, the big one a lot of people are interested in, get humans back to the moon and Mars by 2028. Another one, you see it here, cancel the costly rocket space launch system and possibly the Orion spacecraft, consolidate Goddard and Ames research centers, to name a few. I mean, move NASA headquarters to a field center and reduce the administration presence in D.C. That has a lot of people talking. Redesign the Artemis lunar program to make it more efficient. Now, that's actually one idea. Retired NASA astronaut Jose Hernandez agrees with. Some of the others he says are unrealistic. We actually spoke to him, got his take on potential moves for NASA by the incoming Trump administration.
Some of it makes sense, and some of them are kind of like head scratchers. Mars is at least 10 to 15 years away. There's no way we're gonna get there in 2028, simply because of the technical hurdles and what could happen to our bodies during long duration space travel, that we're not gonna be able to send humans by 2028.
So Jose went on to say he is confident that NASA is going to get humans back on the moon by 2028, but that's as far as he was willing to go. Should also mention all of these are really just suggestions. They're not written in stone. Why? Because any administrative changes or anything like that, not only would it have to go through Congress, but it also have to go through the White House Office of Management and Budget, then through Congress, since Congress funds NASA. President Trump nominated Jared Isaacman, a billionaire entrepreneur and private space traveler, as NASA administrator, a signal that the Trump administration is very interested in a push towards privatizing space travel and consolidating resources and locations around the country. So moving NASA headquarters outside of D.C. to one of the centers, all in effort to streamline the programs. This idea would be to attract, more space companies like Elon Musk. SpaceX, since NASA has supported the development of commercial space travel for over 2 decades, which could, in theory, give the U.S. an advantage over China in space technology and offer the U.S. more military protection in space. One last thing before I send it over to you. Jose Hernandez, that retired NASA astronaut, he said the space industry and a lot of space companies are really excited about this incoming Trump administration because of that partnership he has with Elon Musk. From Dallas, Xavier Walton, News Nation.
Now to our This Week cover story. Top of agenda for Governor Bill Lee at the start of the new legislative session next week is his expanded school voucher program. It failed last year due mainly to GOP infighting, and this year there are educators and parents across the state pushing back against the plan. News 2's Maya Owens reports.
Glad to have everyone here.
Tonight in a town hall.
The hard sell that you saw last session has gotten even harder.
Parents and educators are pushing back again against Governor Bill Lee's school voucher legislation.
Vouchers are not popular, despite skewed polls that are coming out saying that they are. The majority of students in Tennessee attend public schools, and the majority of families are supportive of public schools and want to see them well-resourced.
The group stating their message is clear. Stop using public money to fund exclusive private school tuition.
Private schools are exclusive by nature. They do not have to accept everybody that comes to their door. Do we want inclusive communities that educate all of our kids Or do we want to put our money towards exclusive institutions which are going to discriminate against the most vulnerable kids in our communities?
The governor's plan aims to expand the voucher program to all 95 counties in Tennessee, giving families taxpayer dollars to cover some of the cost of private school tuition.
Those families that are already in private schools that have the ability to pay and do that should not benefit from the public funds.
The town hall comes as Governor Lee's push for school vouchers hit the airways. The governor appearing in television ads advocating for the new bill.
Making sure that kids not only get the right option for their education, but their parents get to choose that.
In just a week, his voucher bill will be up for discussion at the start of the new legislative session after it failed last year. The American Federation for Children, a nonprofit that advocates for school vouchers, backing the governor, stating it benefits both sides of the issue.
I do think that this bill seems to have something for not just families who want to attend, say, a private school, but even those who want to send their kids to, the existing public schools.
And the new session is set to convene next Tuesday. But remember, last year when this was proposed, it failed after the House and Senate were unable to negotiate on certain stipulations. Now, many are curious to see how it shakes out.
Stay with us. This Week continues in a moment.